Let's take a look at the syllabus from the set project folder, which is that PDF inside of the data folder. If you were to open up your directory path, you'll notice that conquers data folder, we have the syllabus, right? So just remember, you can always open them and keep track of things in life, because life is important, isn't it? I guess so. The paint, weights, and skin is basically our main objective for today. So let's get started. Let's X out of this, this, and this. All right, so the first thing that we need to understand is that how does these weights work? So we're going to take just a simple polymodeling tool, and we're going to use a ball. And with that ball, I'm going to scale it. And by scaling my ball, I'm going to use a spacebar key just so that you can understand the basic concept of paint weights, right? So I'm going to squeeze the fun out of this one, and we're going to use the rigging tool, like the joint tool that we use quite often now, right? So I'm going to do 1, 2, and 3, just there. So now we have 3 joints within the within the hypergraph, and we're going to select these 2 joints, 6 and 7, shift select the mesh, and we're going to take a look at some of these optional displays from the bind skin set, right? All right, so we're going to bind everything to selected joints for this lesson, right? So we have other options. Of course, the joint hierarchy is self-explanatory. So for the bind method, right, so we have a couple of different techniques, and we're going to stick to the closest distance, but I think that closest to hierarchy is also great to work with. There's a heat map, but we're going to work with closest distance. As far as the skinning method, now it's either going to be classic linear or dual quaternion. It sounds like the future. It's the quaternion future for smooth skinning. So it's sort of like a method that's designed to kind of kill all this deformation, right? That's not supposed to be there. So it usually happens within the arm, the elbows, the knees, right? When they bend. So with the quaternion, you sort of get a better feel, better anticipation too when you animate these. So we're going to use the classic linear just for this one. And as far as normalizing weights, we're going to stay interactive. Stick with the distance. You can use neighbors too, but that's fine. To allow multiple bind poses, just remember, if you have more than a couple of meshes to work with, you might want to put that on, right? So since we only have one mesh on this one, let's skip it. Now the max influence might interfere with later on, right? So it depends. The higher the max influence, the heavier it gets, right? So just remember that. I mean, especially if you work with a game engine, and we are going to work with the game engine, so we're going to stick to a 3 max influence. I like to colorize the skeleton, so all of these are also self-explanatory. And let's hit apply, right? So what we have now is basically 2 joints that are driving my 2 joints that are driving my mesh, right? And so now I can move my sphere. I was lost for words. I was like, what is that? Is that a sphere? No, it's squeezed in. I don't know. It looks like a patty from the UK. Oh, sorry. All right, let's get back to work. If I were to select the joint 7, there, we're going to take a look at the weight information. There's the deformation right here. So it doesn't look too bad, right? But if you take a look at the wireframe, you'll notice that we're getting unevenness, even though this is deforming. So we're going to select the mesh, right mouse click, hold, and use the paint skin weights tool. And on that skin weights tool, you'll notice that we have the tool settings available with joint 6 and joint 7 that you can easily select, right? Now, I'm not going to explain all of these tools, right? You can look that up also on my Autodesk help. It's got everything that you need, okay, for explanation on these tools. But we will stick to the basics, and we're going to use paint for right now. and the replace tool especially, right? The smooth tool as well. So if I were to use a replace tool, you need to understand that this paint skin system relies on vertices, right? So each vertices carries a weight, and that weight is from 0 to 1, right? Then we'll get to the component editor in just a second. But if you hold B, oh, sorry about that. Let's go back to the paint skin weights tool. Oops, what's going on? What is going on? Okay. If you hold B and left mouse hold, right, you can scale the radius. And since we are working on replace now, we're going to set the value to 1, right? And we're going to add more influence at the bottom of my joint so that I can have a full 1 value for each of these vertices. Just remember, we are working from 0 to 1 on these vertices. And we'll get to the bottom of what I'm saying in just a second. But you'll notice that I'm pushing it to the limit right now, right? Just like the song. Push it to the limit. So just keep waiting until you feel that this bend is accurate. Well, it looks pretty messed up. However, we're going to use a second tool for this lesson, which is the smooth tool, right? And when you use a smooth tool around these edges, you'll notice that now we're getting a much smoother weight for my little sphere. All right. Now, I do have unnecessary influences on the top, right? So you can also use the replace tool again. But this time, just remember, when you add value up to 1 on these vertices, it adds influence. But if you lower the value, the numerical values to 0, now you can erase these influence or delete that influence so that you can get a much better So you can get a much better deformation for that little sphere, right? Now, it may look like it's a little bit too deformed right here, but we're going to use a smooth tool again, so it's a back and forth game with this one, right? There we go. And you'll notice that now we want to set that topology perfectly just by using the tool settings right here for the paint skin weights tool. All right, so I was focusing on this. Okay, so now you can test the weights, right? So you can select your joints and voila, right? So you'll notice that on the other side, we also have some more work to do, but let's just fix that up really quick. We can use the smooth tool again, right? And you can also use another preferred tool that I like also is the flood tool. So just remember to maybe work around the edges right here and then use the flood tool, which will basically flood the entire mesh this way, right? But you'll notice that it's getting much smoother the more I flood it, right? So I'm still getting some influence here. So you see the influence on joint 6 and there's the influence on joint 7. So now I'm getting a much better influence on both of these. But what if, let's just say, what if you make a mistake? I'm going to use the replace tool, set it to 1. What if I want to work on joint 6, which is right here, and I accidentally add more weights right here? There, and this could become a problem because if you use a smooth tool, you're like, well, okay, I'm trying to smooth it out, but it's really not working for me. So this is where you want to use the component editor. I'm going to hit Control 1 on that mesh, and I'm going to select the vertices that are affected, right? So let's select the affected area. And on that affected area, what I really want to do is open the component editor, which is right here, CPED, and open it. Now this basically, this is basically a visual representation, well, not quite visual, but a representation of all the vertices that are selected. So from my selection, I have, let's see, from 264 to 381. So 264, that's about like 100-ish vertices, right? maybe less than that. All right, so you'll notice that each vertex carries a value from 0 to 1. Right, so between 6 and 7, if you put 6 and 7 together, that'll equal to a 1 numerical value, just like we mentioned before. So what I want to do is focus on joint 6, right? Joint 6 is at the bottom, but joint 6 carries value on top, which is why I have this deformation. So we shouldn't have any values for 6 on the top. So what we're going to do is select the first vertice and scroll down, shift select the last vertice and type 0. So we don't want any influence on the top. And what you'll notice is that now that influence has deleted itself. It's gone. It's gone. It's no longer there. That's my Arnold Schwarzenegger impression, but it's terrible. It's terrible. All right, so now that you can sort of understand how the component editor works, we're going to work with the body. Why don't we start with the leg? Now, I want to select the leg and add a keyframe to it. All right, so let's hit S, select the left leg, hit S, go to 60, hit S again. But this time what I want you to do is use the E key to rotate that joint and hit S again. Right, so now we have an animation. I always work with animation for skin weights. Right, and I'm going to find the highest peak wherever that influence pretty much kills the mood for that whole entire rig. And we're going to get started with the weights, right? So first thing I want to do is to kill the influence that's not necessary, right? And that is on the right side. So on the right side, I'm going to turn off my skeleton for right now. Right? And I already know that this is left leg, left knee, left ankle, left whatever. And we're going to marquee select, or not marquee, we're going to select the vertices on the right side. Right, so select the vertices on the right side because we want to kill that influence there. We want to kill that influence, right? We want to make sure that nothing really moves on my selection whenever the animation hits. There. There. Let's play that again. Okay. Let's go right smack in the middle. There it is. All right, based on my selection, I want to open up the component editor. There it is. And we can easily fix this just by looking at it. So based on my selection, which is on the right side, we want to delete all the deformation coming from the right side, right? Or left side. So right leg carrying left influence. Therefore, delete left influence. Let's scroll all the way down. Let's shift select the last vertice right here. So now we have the left ankle, the left knee, the left leg, and the left toe. And select the last vertice so that they're all selected. And hit 0 with enter. So that now we don't have the left underscore available anymore. So now if we take a look at the animation, you'll notice that we no longer have that deformation or that skin pulling from the left side, right? And we kind of want to do the same thing for the other side. But as for right now, let's just work on the left. Right, so now the left is ready for binding. We want to bring the skeleton back and let's start with another animation. So in order for you to delete the animation, you can select the left leg. You can open up the GE tool, which is right here. You see, it says G, the graph editor. It'll open and you'll notice that we have an animation. This is a much easier way for you to delete animation this way. Right, just hit delete. Marquee select the animation curve and hit delete. So now let's also select, let's also select the leg and the knee. we're going to hit S, and on keyframe 60, let's bring it back. There we go. We're going to turn on the automated keyframe toggle, right? So make sure you turn that on so that whatever you do now, once it carries a keyframe, it will automatically add another one, right? All right, so now we have an animation, and let's get started. So for the leg, let's select the mesh, right mouse click, hold, and paint skin weights tool. Now, we're working with the hips right now for the pelvis. We want to work with the left leg, and now we can see how much influence is carrying the left leg. Now, just remember, the pelvis is already carrying influence on that area. I won't say it. All right, so there it is. We can smooth it out. You can still use the B key, left mouse hold, so that we can scale the radius. We're going to use the replace tool and set that value, that numerical value, to 0, right? So that now we can delete influence as much as we want. All right, so let's do this. All right, let's just delete it until it looks okay. All right, we don't necessarily need all of this right here. Awesome. I'm going to scale my radius again. There it is. Awesome. So I'm going to follow this edge loop right here so I can have a steady influence. There we go. All right. There we go. So that now if we take a look at the animation and play the animation, well, it's almost getting there. Almost getting there. So I'm going to find a nice pose where I can add more information or delete more deformation or skin weights. There we go. There you go. There you go. Okay. There we go. Very nice and smooth. Okay. All right. Just remember, I'm not making a Disney rig, right? I just want to do something basic that is suitable for a game engine and that will look good without any peaking vertices, or, you know, sometimes you find a rig with vertices popping out everywhere. It's a complete mess. Let's use the smooth tool and let's smooth everything out now. So we want to make sure that that topology looks nice, and there it is. Looks nice and smooth. Smooth topology, nice and smooth. I'm the smooth operator, babe. It's like Barry White. Do you guys know Barry White? He was an amazing artist from the 70s. Can't get enough of your love, babe. I don't know and I don't know why. Can't get enough of your love, babe. Look at the knee. The knee needs a lot of work, right? So we're going to delete that influence. Use the replace tool, set the value to 0, and let's delete some influence. And also, if this animation is interfering with if it's interfering with you setting the weights, I'm having a little issue. Let's go back to the move tool and back to skin weights. Yeah, sometimes it does that. It just bugs out. I'm using Maya 2025 now. I think I was using Maya 2022 before. I'm not sure, but okay. All right, so let's keep deleting these vertices or that area until the leg looks okay. All right, so now we're getting much better deformation. I'm going to follow that edge loop and also scale that radius down just a little bit so we can get closer to the edge loop right here. So I'm going to choose this edge loop right here, following the knee. Awesome. All right, so now let's play the animation. There we go. So I was looking for something like this, right? So it kind of overlaps right here, but then again, that's what I was looking for. So if I were to select the knee right now, you'll notice that we also have influence merging from the knee to the leg. So why don't we just work on that too? Let's delete some of that influence. Use the B key, right? I like to push it to the extreme and just simply follow the edge loop that follow an edge loop like this one right here. So I'm going to delete everything on that edge loop. Whoops, I think I went way too fast. There we go. Awesome. Let's go back right here. Right, following my edge loop. There it is. So even if it looks a little bit weird, it doesn't really matter. We can still add more influence. We can flood. There, we can flood the knee. Let's use a smooth tool. There we go. Awesome. All right, so we got that going. Let's play the animation. All right, so you'll notice that now we have something peeking right here, which is okay. That's fine. We can use a smooth tool. It does this all the time. Right, and if you use a smooth tool, you'll notice that it's actually going towards this way. So let's use the leg. There we go. And with that leg, we're going to smooth everything out. Awesome. I notice also that right here, I'm getting a weird deformation, right? Right, so I can take care of that issue right here. So let's select the vertices. Don't need my skeleton for right now. Maybe even select that all of this right here. And let's open up the component editor and see what's going on. And there it is. You see that? Right knee and right leg. So I have a lot of influence from there. But let's marquee select this leg. Actually, all of it. Let's go back to keyframe 0. We should have done this before. And I'm going to marquee select half of the leg. Perfectly. And I'm going to delete all the right influences, right? So let's scroll all the way down and shift select the last vertice. So now we have, oh no, let's work with 4 joints. Let's go back up. There it is. First one. Scroll all the way down, shift select the last vertice of the right toe and type 0. So that now I don't have this issue that I had before. If you still remember, I was bending the knee and I was having this weird deformation there, right? So want to make sure that that's gone. Let's go back to the skin weights and see what's going on now. Let's take a look at left leg, left knee. There, awesome. At least we don't have any more influence coming from the right side. All right, so let's also use the B key. There it is. Use the replace tool, add it to 1, and let's start painting the leg. Get some nice deformation right here. You'll notice that everything is snapping back just like it should be. There it is. Yeah. Very, very nice. Awesome. All right, so let's also make this a little smoother than before. Let's find a good anticipation right here. Use the B key, left mouse hold, and let's smooth that area. Right? We can also use a flood tool if you like. Yeah, so now we're getting much better deformation, as we can see. And just remember that the flood tool also works up and down, right? So it added more weights towards the rear area and the front area, which is not an issue. That's fine. That's fine, right? So let's say we like what we have. We have the leg and we have the knee available. If I were to take a look at the knee now, let's select the skeleton. Boom, select that skeleton right now. And the leg. Open up the GE tool, which is the graph editor, and we're going. Let's delete that animation now. Delete it. Let's create another animation on the foot. 0 to 60. On 60, let's bring that in. Looks pretty bad, right? Yeah, that's pretty bad. Look at that. Ooh. All right, let's find keyframes 29. Hit Control 1 for right now. What we're going to do is select the vertices again, and this time let's make a marquee selection from the knee. So right here, let's delete those vertices, and just remember we're going to select the component editor again. And now my goal, if you take a look at the marquee selection with the vertices, my goal is to basically delete any influence coming from the ankle and the toes, right? So ankle and the toes. And look at that, I have a right leg influence. It's weird. Okay, so let's do this. Left ankle. Type 0. And let's do the same thing for the toe. I don't want any influence coming from the toe, especially the right leg. Type 0. Okay, so once we do this, now we can test the knee, test the animation. You see the difference? Awesome. All right, so let's also take care of the back of the heel, or the back of the foot. Select the Paint Skin Weights tool, ankle, and we're going to add a full 1 value right here. So let's use the, on Paint Operations, set it to replace with a value of 1, and simply paint over the heel so that we can have a really nice deformation there. All right, boom. All right, take your time. There we go. So I think that the main goal is to paint over until we reach the toe joint, which is right here. I also would like to delete some influence right here towards the end of the toe. And I'm still working on the left ankle, by the way. Awesome. All right, so now let's take a look at the animation. All right, we're going to smooth that factor right here. Awesome. Let's work on the toes as well. You can see that the toes have a nice weight. Actually, it's not that bad. Let's use the smooth tool. And I noticed that the smooth tool has these weird vertices popping out. So let's see what's going on. Let's marquee select that area, open up the component editor, and let's see that we have influence on the left knee. That's not a good sign. All right, so why don't we just select my entire foot. There it is. Awesome. Open up the component editor and let's delete anything coming from the left knee. And look at that, I have some right ankle deformation right here, or influence. So the left knee needs to be out. Awesome. Yeah. Goodbye, left knee. Goodbye. Let's play that animation again one more time. Very nice. Right, let's also take a look at my skeleton. Whoops. There it is. Let's bend that toe just to make sure we have a proper deformation. Okay. And now let's work with the weights. Right, so let's delete that influence. There we go. All right, let's delete a little bit more. Add more smoothness to the toes. Or maybe we can flood it. Right, so we can have a very, very nice anticipation for this one. All right, we're going to stop it right here for the leg. So now we have all of our joints, such as, all right, so we have the toes, the ankle, the knee, and the left leg. We're going to select all of them. Let's make sure that their rotational values are set to 0 so that we have the original bind pose position. Let's open up the graph editor and let's delete that animation there. All right, so now we have no more animation, but if I were to select my 3 joints and go back, so now we have some pretty good results. And that's pretty much what we want to do. So there it is. I actually don't like this. See that? So let's add more weights to this right now. And that will be for my leg. So now you can also directly aim at the left leg, right mouse click, hold, and select that influence. So you can do that on the spot if you like, if you want. Use the replace tool. Let's add more value so that this makes more sense, right? So let's add more into it. You know what? Let's make an animation really quick. I should not have deleted that animation. Ah, jeez. Why are you doing this? Make life simpler and easier. What are you doing? All right, so now we have the animation in. Awesome. Boom. Boom. Let's add more influence. There we go. I like to push the limit always, and then after modify the weights. There we go. Yeah, I think this is fine. All right, so it's not going to look as good, but we're going to add more influence. Maybe flood it. There we go. I think I like this much better, right? And who knows how far you can go, by the way. So you can spend hours and hours on these weights to make them perfect, right? Between the pelvis and the leg. So if you want to, you can also remove influence on that pelvis area, so you can see what the results are. But I like to keep some influence around that around the leg, just because it kind of gives me this more realistic feel with the muscle system, right? So, but this is only for a game, and this is a cartoonish character. So unless you're working on a realistic character, just be very careful. All right, so this might work for us. Yeah, this is definitely going to work. Okay. All right, so let's go back to the move tool, and here we go. So now we have the left leg. Why don't we merge that influence to the right side so we don't waste that much time? Let's select the mesh, and let's go to skin. And under skin, we're going to mirror those skin weights. Open the optional display. We're going to set the mirroring across to YZ. And what we're doing is set the direction from a positive to negative influence, right? So just remember our axis orientation right now. If you take a look at the axis is going positive this way and negative this way. We're going to set the closest point on surface. In the first influence association will be the closest joints. Now, I like to put 1-to-1 on this one, but that's optional. All right, so now let's take a look at the right side, and there we go. So now we have the right side already weighted. So we didn't waste too much time, but take a look at this. We have another peaking vertice. So This tool is not perfect, but if I were to select my vertices now, open up the component editor, I'll notice that we also have some influence coming from the other side. So just remember that we can also take care of that matter right now as we speak. Let's take a look at the right joints. We're going to select the mesh. Take those vertices. Marquee select the right side again. Awesome. There we go. Open up the component editor and let's delete all the left influence. Awesome. Until left leg. There it is. Until the second one. I forgot the left toe. There it is. Left toe. Awesome. So now if we take a look at the animation again, select the leg, push it back, we no longer have these vertices popping out, right? The deformation looks great. Well, not the best, but it looks okay. Awesome. Okay, so let's move on to the hips. So it'll be spine 1, spine 2, and the chest. First, double check your animation for the legs. So select both legs, use the rotate tool, and yeah, there it is. You see, always double check to see if there are some issues with the vertices. And yes, there is. So this is a pretty easy fix. Just select the weights tool, and there you go. You can see where the issue stands. It's easy, like 1, 2, 3. Okay, so set the replace on paint operations tool. Make sure that the values are set to 0 and just use the B left mouse. Scale the brush and take all that nasty, there it is, that nasty influence out, so that now we can bring that animation back to its original pose position. Or, you know, there's another ways to do it. Assume preferred angle. All right, right mouse click, assume preferred angle, which will basically have the original bind pose position. And one thing I always do is select the mesh and select the skin cluster. Make sure that you switch on and off the envelope 0 and 1. So if you do this and nothing happens, that's actually a good thing. Okay, so it just lets you know that the mesh is clean and ready for spine 1. Let's create an animation on spine 1, spine 2, and the chest. Select the 3 of them, and then on 0, the timeline, hit the letter S, and on 60, rotate. Use the E key to rotate the hips or the spine. So here's my first animation. I'm going to boost that 60 to 120, and we're going to create more animation to this. Maybe on 120, let's have, let's go on 80. Have the body move forward. Then maybe 81, go back to 0, right? And then on 94, rotate to the right. And set this up to S, record it. Maybe on 108. To the left, and maybe on 120 go back to 0. So if you take a look at the animation, you can hit Alt V to play the animation, right? This is what Disney is waiting for, this kind of animation. Whoa. Okay, so I'm gonna stop it and delete the animation on a leg. As you can see, it's quite annoying. So let's open up the GE tool, which is right here on the shelf. Make sure that you delete it, right? Select the curve and then hit delete. You'll be fine. All right, so if you play the animation now, we have something to work with. So let's start with the hips, right? The hips do carry a lot of influence in between spine 1, leg left and right. So select the pen skin weights tool and marquee select the influence on the hips. And there you can see how much influence is involved for this. So now you understand why there's so much. Yeah, now you understand why there are so many vertices just holding onto the hips, right? So you can see it right here. So now we can easily set the skeleton and turn it off. We're going to use the move tool or the vertices tool, and we're going to marquee select all of that influence right here. And we're going to open the component editor right here. Whoops. And from the component editor, let's bring it up there right here. There it is. From the component editor, we're going to look for the pelvis. And on that pelvis, let's make sure that we scroll all the way down. This could get confusing with all these windows, right? All the way down and then hit 0 for pelvis. Right, so that now if you play the animation, you'll notice that there are less vertices being affected from the last time we played this, right? There are still some vertices that are acting a little bit weird, right? Maybe we can take a look and see exactly what's going on. So there could be, some of them could be from spine 1. So what if I just remove the influence to spine 1 and see where it leads? Now, I'm not telling you that this is going to fix it right away, but it's definitely going to help. So if I hit 0, you'll notice that we have some hard edges now, right? If I play the animation, let's go back to object mode and play the animation. See if you can see, there it is, right? We don't have these vertices popping out, and that's exactly what we want. All right, so we had to take influence out from, remove influences from spine 1 joint. If I take a look at the skeleton, you'll notice that the spine 1 joint is a little bit far away from that location, right? From these vertices. So that's exactly what you want to look for. So the hips is not that bad, actually. I think we might keep the weights of these hips, but I want to look for the extreme, right, on this animation. And the extremes are right here on the sides, and especially this animation. You'll notice that we have vertices popping out here. So let's get to it. So in between 79, there it is. Right, I want to make sure that I clean this up right here. So select the paint skin weights tool, and there it is. Now you see what's going on. All right, so maybe we don't really need that much influence coming from the hips all the way over here. So let's take, I'm going to take the component out, right, and I'm going to start using the paint operation replace tool, set the value to 0, and then just remove some influence manually. I think manually would be great for right now to get some hands-on experience. What better ways? Have you seen that Superman trailer, by the way? Wow, that looks great. Crypto the dog. Okay, let's take a look at the smooth weights right here. There it is. Awesome. So I still have some weird vertices popping out, but it is definitely smoothing its way. It's like a smooth criminal, right? There it is. Boom. Take a look at the spine 1 now. There. And now you can understand why there's so much bad influence around the hips, right? So even if I use a smooth tool, it's still acting a little bit weird, right? But I do want to smooth these out right here for spine 1. Right below the shirt. And you'll notice that now it's getting much smoother around that area, but do play the animation constantly, right? So you can see right here, it kind of breaks. So I want to go back and forth in between. There it is. You see spine 2 is interrupting everything. So I want to make sure that we remove that influence from spine 2. And also what we could do to really make this much easier and faster, why don't we just take a look at the location of spine 2, which is right here. Now we can use a joint scale display tool right here. So if you select the JS tool, It should pop out. I don't see it. My window is probably lost. That's fine. I was looking forward to scaling the radius maybe for joint 2, so I can see exactly where it's located. Okay, so it's right here. So I'm gonna deselect the there it is, the display view for the skeleton, and select the vertices. Now this time, just that area right here. Right, I want to make sure to remove any influence coming from the skeleton or spine 2. So I'm going to open up the component editor, and here it is, spine 2. So I'm going to select the first vertice, and then from the first vertice, scroll all the way down, and from there, select the last vertice and hit 0. Right, so we want to remove that influence, remove it. So X out, and then after, go back to object mode and play the animation, and you'll notice now we're getting some much better results, right? Much better results. Take a look at the topology. By the way, this character has a high poly. It's a bit high poly for rigging, but it's got a smooth transition when you import it to Unreal Engine, so it doesn't look that boxy. So a lot of characters look very boxy inside of Unreal Engine. But now with Unreal 5.5, you can have some really nice smooth definitions in there. So let's select the paint scale weights tool and then smooth some of this out. You can see that spine 2 is taken over below the shirt. Use a smooth paint operation tool and then smooth that out. So now you can clearly see that we're getting some much better results than before, right? Don't go too crazy with the smooth weights tool. I don't want to bypass the belly, right? I don't want to use a flood tool. Sometimes people use the flood tool and it tends to expand at the top of the body and the bottom of the body. I just wanted a smooth transition at the bottom of her hips right here. So this is definitely going to work out now. If I push the extreme right here, there, maybe I can smooth that out and go back and forth between spine 1 and spine 2, right? So if I smooth this one, now even on the extreme, we're getting some really great results. You heard that, Disney? Really great results. All right, I'm just kidding. Let's smooth the hips on the left rotational values, and I think this should be okay, right? We're gonna move on. I'm not gonna spend an eternity on this, right? You can definitely spend an entire day on weightings, but not for this video. All right, so let's move on to the last. No, that's not the last one. That's spine 2. So for spine 2, we definitely don't want that much influence right here for the chest. I think that this entire area will be connected to the chest, right? So for spine 2, what I'm going to do is keep it very, very basic, right? I want to erase or remove some of that influence. Let's remove it right here. I want to remove some of that influence right here for spine 2. So select the replace paint operations tool and then just remove that influence right here. Okay. And don't get any ideas, all right? I don't want to hear it. This is a great character. All right, so let's paint around this area. There it is. Awesome. So I'm just removing some influence that will be suitable for the chest joint. All right, and then smooth that area. So I don't need much, and play the animation. Play the animation. There it is. I can definitely see that there's a stretch right here. Right, so you can use a smooth tool. Don't forget that the chest is also taking over this area too, so you can also select the chest joint, and from there you'll notice that these vertices, or the polygons that were stretched out, are now blending in with the chest area. The chest influence, as I might say. Okay, cool. So if you play the animation again, all right, push the extreme, and that should be okay. All right, let's move on to the chest. So spine 2 was pretty simple and easy, right? We didn't need to do much. But now the chest is carrying a lot of weight. So be extremely careful. Use the paint operation replace tool, set the value to 0, and then just paint over, but be really careful when you paint below the arms, right? We want to stay free from this zone, right? So we want to have some really good definition when you rotate the arms. And let's paint over everything here. There we go. There we go. This entire area should not move, right? Unless you want to go really detailed and use a jiggle deformer after, but not for this. We're going to use this character for motion capture and then bring it onto Unreal Engine. So I want to stay extremely basic for this rigging tutorial. And if you want to have more advanced techniques, please let me know, like stretch values and such. But the stretch values are, they're terrible. Terrible exports and imports to Unreal Engine. I really wouldn't do it. Unless you're inside of Unreal Engine, you can do it. All right, so I'm definitely going to stop right here by the neck. I'm going to remove some influence. Yeah, right here. Let's keep it going right here. All right. Boom. Bada beam, bada boom. Awesome. All right, I want to remove some influence from the neck. So let's use the paint operations tool, set the value to 0, and then remove some influence on the neck. We don't need any influence right here on the head. Also, if you're following along right now and this is working out for you, I want you to hit Control 1. Right, so you can isolate the character, select the vertices, and I want you to select the entire head. Right, so pretty much everything down to the neck. There it is, down to the neck. I want you to open up the component editor and remove any influence coming from, it could be spine, hips, spine 1, spine 2, and especially chest, right? So we have influence from the hair, the eyes. I shouldn't even have, should I have influence from the eyes? No, that's fine. There's influence coming from the chest. So here's the chest. Scroll all the way down. There. Shift select the last vertex and hit 0. Same thing for, let's see. No, everything looks okay. That's fine. Mouth 1, mouth 1, neck. I think we're okay. Yeah. There's left clavicle. Oh, left clavicle. Yeah, I shouldn't have any clavicles involved. So the left and right clavicle should be knocked out. Take it out now. Okay, lock it out. Boom, 0. I think that's okay now. Yep. Okay, awesome. So I'm not going to play the animation for the head because it's not perfect yet. It's still carrying a lot of influence, as you can see. All right. But at least we don't have any more influence coming from the chest. Right. So now if I select the chest, and the chest axis orientation is set to it's set to object, but this time I want to switch it. The axis orientation should be set to world, so that now if I rotate the chest, you'll notice that I don't have that many issues, right? Except when I push the extreme. If I play the animation, it seems to be okay, right? We're getting some pretty good results. Good enough for the mocap that we want to calibrate after. All right, so I kind of see something right here that we can take care of. Nothing too crazy. Honestly, I can use a paint skin weights tool. And this is definitely coming from the chest. Right, so the chest area right here. It's either smoothing everything out, Or maybe we can use the, oops, we can use, I want to select the influence on spine 2, right? So maybe I can remove some influence. Use the paint operations tool, set the value maybe halfway there. No, that's definitely not gonna work. Maybe we can add more influence on the chest. I think that will be wise. Select the chest again on that influence. I'm gonna go back here, and this is where the issue stands. So scale it, add more values. Let's just say we add all of these values on the chest. Let's just say that the chest takes over pretty much everything right here. The whole shirt. Right, and leave just a little bit of influence right here. Smooth it out. Now, this is only a test. I'm not saying this will be perfect, but I'm going to play the animation. You can see that everything is just pulling in. All right, this looks pretty nasty. So I'm going to go back. All right, it was much better with the spine 2 involved right here. Yeah, I was getting some much better results like this, right? As far as this, I can spend an eternity trying to fix this, but it's only acting weird on the extremes, right? So we're not going to use extremes for the mocap, but I will spend a little bit of time to fix this. But it's definitely between spine 2 and maybe even spine 1. Spine 1 shouldn't even be there. Maybe that's what the issue is. If I use a replace tool and replace any influence coming from spine 1, yeah, it's definitely going away. Right, so spine 1 is causing a lot of drama, so kick him out. You're no longer wanted here. Alright, so I'm going to select, maybe not an edge loop, but a vertices loop. A vertex loop, right? And shift brackets to expand this and that. There it is. So now I have a loop selection. I'm going to open up the component editor and just remove any influence coming from spine 1. So here's spine 1, and boom, scroll all the way down, type 0. Awesome. Oh, wait. I have some influence from the chest, pelvis, some from the pelvis. Yeah, let's remove that. We don't need pelvis influence there. That's way too far. Awesome. So now that I removed it, you're going to play the animation again just to make sure that, right, that extreme is not there anymore. So I'm still getting this, still some results, but I'm going to take some time to figure out exactly what's going on with this area. So you can always go to spine 1, spine 2. You can tell that spine 2 is definitely the issue. If I use the chest, here, you notice that when I use the chest influence and remove some of that influence, now I'm getting to fix, there it is. Now I'm getting to fix that extreme pose. And when you play the animation, it seems to be, well, of course, this is a little bit too extreme, but we'll leave it at that. That's fine. That's completely okay. And I can see that right here, these vertices are acting, yeah, they shouldn't be like this, right? So we can smooth these out. This is what I want to see. There we go. Right. Play the animation, and it should be okay. Awesome. Let's go back to keyframe 1. So now that we have pretty much everything ready for spine 1, spine 2, and the chest, right? So play around with the chest, make sure it looks okay. This is definitely good enough for motion capture, and that's it. Also, don't forget to save your work. Hit Control-Shift-S, and from there, make sure that your work is set. My binary, so this will be the spine, right? I already moved on right here for the other classes, but that's fine. So it'll be spine, and don't forget to save a thumbnail. Capture that thumbnail. There it is. Let's get close to the spine so we can have a really nice thumbnail inside of the content browser. The capture pop-up windows right here, thumbnail. You can also have a thumbnail with play blast and animation, but we're not doing animation for right now. So just capture it. There it is. All right, save it. Right, so call it Betty202 bind spine, just like this, and we'll move on to the arms, fingers, and such. Awesome. Okay, let's do the arms. If you select the arm left and create an animation, so we're gonna hit S on 0, just like the same thing we did before, and yeah, we have some animation on the spine, so make sure that you delete it. There it is. Awesome. Whoops, sorry. Let's use the GE tool. There's the animation. Mark you selected and hit delete. Delete it for life. Yeah. Select the arm, and let's create an animation. Right, so from 0 to maybe 28. I'm gonna bring it down, just so that I can see that anticipation right here. Boom. I can see that those vertices pop out. Right. All right. So one animation. Let's bring it back to normal after. Let's. There are multiple ways to bring it back to 0, but let's just assume preferred angle. There it is. And then let's go up. Let's go up. There. It's not that bad. Once again, let's bring it back to 0 or preferred angle, whichever works for you. And let's go back in. And now we're going to bring the arms forward. All right. And we're going to bring it back. All right, so it doesn't matter. You don't need to follow the same keyframes, right? Just as long as we have something to work with. All right, you don't need to take a look at the precise keyframe. Just make sure that you can work with it, that's all. All right, so let's play the animation. Watch out, Disney. Oh yeah, baby. Let's see, right here. Now I want to make sure that I can smooth everything. Like the intersections between the chest, the clavicle, and the arms. So I'm going to select the paint skin weights tool, and there's the chest area. Right, so the chest is definitely taken over right here. Is slightly taken over the clavicle system, but I'm going to go back to my clavicle and let's take a look at the left shoulder. So we only work on the left side. Only work on the left side. That's one thing that I tell everyone. Because we're going to mirror the weights from left to right. All right, so hit replace. There it is. Let's remove some influence. So the clavicle should only take over this particular area. I don't want any influence on the neck either. Of course, we're going to smooth it out and it's going to blend in together, but try not to have too much influence on there. All right, let's use a smooth tool, and I don't want to spend too much time on this. All right, so in between the chest, there, in between the chest and the clavicle, I want to make sure that we smooth everything out. All right, so here it is, and play the animation. This is why you made this animation, right? This amazing animation. Amazing. 4 keyframes of joy. There it is. Awesome. Okay. So I have some influence pulling in. You can see the topology right here. These vertices are popping out and I want to know why, right? So if I take a look at the shoulder, I can see why this is pulling in. So there it is. Right? And as I remove that influence from the shoulder, right? This is the left shoulder. You'll notice that everything is now blending it perfectly. So play the animation again and get under the arms. Remove that influence. So this influences everything. I think this is the most time-consuming part for motion capture. But then after this, sky's the limit. You can have any animations you want on this, and you won't have any deformations or vertices popping out. And I think that's some of the major issues to custom characters, right? Not the ones that you get online, but and it depends on the complexity of the character. Okay, so that should be okay. That should be cool. Left clavicle, there it is. So the only problem that I have is that when I go up and when I use my rotational values up like this, you'll notice that I have this this weird curve, right? So I definitely want to add more influence on that shoulder. And the only way to do that is to use the paint operations tool, set the value to 1, right? And now from there, we can add more values right here so that we can test the elevation of the arm. Right, so it's not going to be perfect at first, but definitely, yeah, definitely getting better, right? So it's penetrating through the clavicle a little bit. But I kind of want it this way, right? And this is a cartoony character, so it's not a realistic character. Whoops. Let's set the paint operations to 1. Whoops. Let's scale it down. Add more values there. And then use the smooth tool. There it is. Maybe I'll use the flood tool. There it is. Awesome. And then play the animation. Yeah, this might work, right? This might work just a bit. Okay. Let's bring this animation down. Oh, I thought I brought it down. Okay, awesome. So you see there's some influence here that I should be removing. Replace. Boom. There we go. Awesome. All right. There's also another issue that I have, especially for rigging sometimes. A lot of people tend to have this issue. It looks great from this angle, right? So you make the rotational values forward like this, but sometimes the arm tends to rotate. Let's go back to object on the axis orientation. So let's rotate this and just make sure that when you rotate the arm this way, right, it doesn't act too weird. You want to make sure that you don't have this issue as well. So let's clean that up as well. Use a paint scheme weights tool, and let's use more influence or smooth everything out. Whoops, no, let's keep it here. Right, and just work your way in. So it's not, for this one, it's going to be a little bit challenging. I'm going to use the replace tool. There we go. Right, I want to make sure that I'm pushing the extreme, by the way, so don't be too alarmed if it looks a little bit weird. Okay, so now I want to go back to my rotational values. Boom. Go back to 0. Awesome. Play the animation. It looks, yeah. Let's smooth that out too. Boom. Yeah, let's smooth it out. There it is. See, now I'm getting a little shoulder feel right here. I'm going to grab more influence towards the clavicle area. Awesome. Let's play the animation. That's fine. moving forward, back, and that should be it. Okay, we're going to move on to the elbow, and on the elbow, remove some influence here. Delete the animation from the arm. Right, so use the GE tool, scale it out, and remove it. Add more animation for the elbow. Hit look at keyframe 1, hit S, and maybe on 60 just rotate the arm. That looks pretty nasty. Ew. Okay, so use the paint scale weights tool, use a replace, set it to 0, and remove that influence right here. There we go. And you can follow the edge loops. Just a little trick, right? When you use paint weights, follow the edge loops so that you can have some really decent deformation after. Okay. Play the animation again. Here we go. And let's take a look at the elbow influence. I want to make sure that I remove all that nasty influence right here on the arm, connected to the elbow. Right, and there's a little trick for the elbow as well. That's why you want to make sure that the topology on the elbow has this circular motion, so we can throw a pinch of influence here. So let's here's what I mean by that. You see, now I'm getting a clear bend, but I also want to have, there it is. I also want to use the replace tool and add a 0 value, but just use a pinch right here. Right, maybe we'll use it with the arm. So let's go to shoulder and use set a pinch right here. That's it. Right, so that when you bend it, we have more shape for the elbow. And then you can smooth everything out right here as well. So that's okay if you have a little bit of influence pulling the weight right here. All right, so let's add more values maybe for the elbow. There it is. One in. Right, I don't want to go too crazy on right here. The penetration is okay. It's okay. All right, that should be okay. All right, so I'm going to delete the animation for the elbow. I'll play it again. Right here around this area, hit Control 1, isolate the character, select the vertices, and I just want you to select this area right here. That's it. And use the component editor and delete any influence coming from the left shoulder. Right, so here's the left shoulder. Scroll all the way down, select the last vertice, and hit 0. It's just a formal cleanup, so like a procedural step, so that we don't have to deal with any other influence jumping in and out. It tends to happen sometimes. So, all right. So moving on to the wrist. The wrist should be not that crazy. Let's make sure that we also delete the animation for. There it is. GE tool for the elbow. There it is. Boom. The wrist, and that should be it. All right. So same thing for the wrist. Select the first keyframe, hit S, maybe at 53, rotate the wrist. It's on object, and I noticed that from my top view, the do you see this? The rotational values on this are a little bit off, so I do want to make sure that it's on object, just like object mode. You can use the keyframe F8 and select the question mark right here. And if you don't see the question mark, it could be hidden sometimes, so be very, very careful. Right here, right? So F8 is the select by component type. And select the question mark. so that now you can select that axis orientation and just skim it down to X, right? Just follow the X movement, right? So that now if you hit F8 again one more time, you'll notice that the axis orientation follows the hierarchy, right? So want to make sure that this happens. So now if you rotate up and down, you shouldn't have too many issues, right? So the weights on the wrist is not looking that bad. I'm going to move it up just a bit. Paint skin weights tool, remove some of that influence. Yeah, it's looking pretty nasty. Oh, that's disgusting. Ugh. Okay, so that's looking okay. On keyframe, maybe 81. Let's bring it down. That looks okay too, right? Just use a little bit of weights in there. Oops. No. Smooth it out. There. Right, and maybe on 94. Let's bring that back to 0. Let's see the sides. Sides are okay. Okay, so that'll be it for the wrist. Awesome. Yeah. Don't forget to save your work. I save every freaking version. So let's select the joints. Use the GE tool, the graph editor, and marquee select the animation, delete it. And then now just close it. Let's get a close-up on the arm. And then Control-Shift-S. And we're going to call this one Fingers Arms. And also capture a thumbnail. Capture it. Save it. Save again. Yes, I want to replace it. Right, so that now when you open up the content browser, which is right here, remember, these are only shortcuts. Let's go to projects and scenes. Right, so now we can see the arm's finger. We can have a solid track of the entire rig. Also, don't forget to mirror the weights, select a mesh, and from there, look for the rigging shelf. Go to skin, mirror skin weights, open up the optional display, YX, positive to negative. Right, sorry. Closest point on surface, that's fine. Association is just the closest joint. I have it 1-to-1 on the second one, not that it's really necessary, but hit mirror so that now when you select the other side, right, and you mirror your joints, we now have saved a lot of time. So it'll be the same on the other side. Right, and if you feel that you want to adjust and add more details to the weights, feel free. But you'll spend an eternity forever. The wrist should be okay. The wrist also has this rotational value, this axis orientation issue. So hit F8 always, select the wrist, and then simply rotate it this way. Go back to F8, and you're all set. Save your work as usual. Awesome. So why don't we get started with the fingers, right? We're going to marquee select the vertices for the middle finger first, and simply select that edge loop just like this. And I want you to hit Shift and greater than button so that you can expand your selection, open up the component editor, my best friend, your best friend, the smooth weight's best friend. And what we're going to do is look for the first joint of that middle finger, and you'll understand what we're doing after. But select the first joint and scroll down to its last vertice value and simply hit 1. So we want to make sure that the first joint carries a full 1 value, not the second and not the third one. But you'll understand why we're adding so much weight into one joint. So why don't we just do the same thing for the rest of these fingers. Select the index and expand this selection. Make sure that you expand it correctly. And go in the back. Make sure that you have those edge loops selected. There we go. Right? And I want you to get close and make sure you don't miss any vertices. Missing even one vertex could be very crucial after, so be very careful on your selection. So once you have that going, make sure that you also have your component editor open so that you can easily select the first vertex, scroll all the way down, shift select the last vertex and type 1. Right, so we want to make sure that we do that for all of the fingers. Let's just do this all together. Together forever. That's a song from the 70s. I'm not going to sing it. I promise, Mama, I won't do it. Let's just keep selecting these vertices on the thumb, and maybe we might need to expand the thumb a little bit more. Right, so shift and greater than button. I actually don't really know what that button is really called. It looks like a bracket, but it's not a bracket, but we use it for greater or less than. I'll get to it. Anyways, select a first vertex value and the last one and type 1. Okay, and now we're going back to the pinky and the middle finger. Now just remember, my pinky is not fully weighted yet, right? But I did work on the middle finger, the index, and the thumb itself. And what we want to do is to test the animation and make sure what works and what doesn't work as far as vertices and influences. So I want to make sure that I select also my pinky finger, which is very, very nasty on that. So let's take a look at the paint operation, set it to smooth, and smooth out the weights a little bit just for the pinky. Now we want to test some of that animation on the middle finger, right? You'll notice that there are no weights, so it's pretty much empty. But that's only because we've added a full 1 value on that first joint. Now what we want to do is select the first joint and pretty much just clean everything up, set the paint operations to replace, and then start removing influence, right? Set the value to 0 so you can fully remove that influence and clean that up, right? Follow the edge loops. Just follow the yellow brick road, Dorothy. It's not a yellow brick road, it's actually an edge loop, but it has nothing to do with this lesson. I'm very sorry about that. It's called ADHD. Anyways, let's go back in. Let's take a look at the second joint and let's add more values in there, right? So the second joint is now selected and we're going to add a full 1 value, right? We're going to paint over that edge loop. And the only reason why we're doing this is because we want the second joint to take over now. And I love this technique just because it is so basic and so simple. We're adding a full 1 value on each finger one by one, right? We're following the yellow brick road, Dorothy. And what's happening when you do this, you're not using the component editor, but you're not also missing out on any vertices that are going to be left out or stranded because we're going to test it with animation. Right? And the only reason why I also want to show you this technique is because it's simple, it's easy, it's basic, and it transfers beautifully inside of Unreal Engine or any other software. I have my little battles with Blender for importing FBXs sometimes, but it still works nicely. It's just a little bit more complex when it comes to importing animations from Maya, of course. So we selected the third joint and we added more values. So we want to use the same technique on the other fingers. We're going to do one more finger after this so that we can all see the same technique over and over again, and we'll have a time lapse. So second joint has been selected and added weights. Third joints have been selected and we added more weights into it. Right, so now when you test the animation, you'll notice that we're getting something pretty solid, right? That just needs more smoothness. So you can add and use the smooth tool. Go back to paint operations and smooth everything out. Just make sure that your edge loops look correct, that they don't look deformed. And if you were to make a fist anticipation, right, if you pretty much rotate all the fingers, you want to make sure that it looks okay, right, that it looks good enough for rendering. Alright, so keep smoothing out these weights until you get it right and you feel that the finger looks appropriate for the next one, right? So this is the middle finger. You can also use some various techniques to make a little pointy thing, so like a knuckle for the finger, right? But I don't have the proper topology for the fingers, as you can see. So we're just using a basic character for the fingers. So the topology is not 100%, but it's good enough to yeah, it's good enough for this tutorial. So let's do the second one, right? Let's do the index finger. And you'll notice that on the first joint, we have a solid white influence on taking over joint 2 and joint 3. So why don't we just remove influence first? Let's select the paint weights tool, the paint weights tool, the paint weights tool. What's going on? What's going on? What? What's going on? Oh. Is it bugging out? Alright, select the mesh. What is going on? What are you doing? Why don't you work? Oh, I think it's because they're all selected. My apologies. Alright, so why don't we use the paint operations tool and set that value to 0 and remove influence. Right, we want to follow that edge loop, and as you can see now, we're getting some very nice deformations. Well, not deformations, we're removing the deformation on that finger. And we want to scale that down. Just remember, the scaling is Shift and B. And we want to move on to the second finger, right? So that will be the first one. Let's move on to the second finger. Let's add more influence. All right, we're going to add the value to 1. Select the second finger. There it is. And we're going to follow the edge loop. And as you can see, just like the middle finger, now we're getting some proper values for the second joint. And just make sure that you take your time to just paint those weights and make sure that you don't leave anyone behind. Don't leave any vertices behind, because if you leave vertices behind, it's going to come and hunt you in the rear right after. So you definitely don't want these vertices to pop back in. So take your time. Paint over these, right? This is not a complex character, so you don't need to use the component editor for each fingers, right? Just make it very slowly, take your time, and it'll be just fine. So we're moving on to the third finger, and we're going to use a time lapse for the rest of the fingers. So that's pretty much it for the fingers, right? So it's not a complex technique, but it is a very, very time consuming if you don't do it the right way. So please make sure to follow this tutorial correctly. There are tons of other tutorials too for paint weights. Everyone uses a different technique. So please make sure that you can also see the differences between these and the other ones and such.